Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. Now here's a cartoon that will trigger the nostalgia of animation fans, especially those who grew up during the 2000s. Many may recognize Jimmy as the smartest kid on the Nickelodeon block, accompanied by his robot dog Goddard, and goes on crazy adventures with the other kids in Retroville. But before he was a big-brain TV star and doing crossovers with Timmy Turner from Fairly Odd Parents, Neutron was one of the pioneers of computer animation. Back during the early 1990s, John A. Davis was starting to experiment with CGI at his new studio, DNA Productions. And as he was testing out the softwares that were openly available to the public at the time, like Messiah and Lightwave 3D, he had a great idea with the technology. A cartoon that he wrote and storyboarded back in the 80s called Runaway Rocket Boy. By 1995, Davis, along with his business partner Keith Alcorn, created a 40-second demo that featured a kid named Johnny Quasar with his robot dog and presented it to the renowned computer graphics convention, SIGGRAPH, which got a lot of buzz amongst the CG community. It even caught the attention of filmmaker and comedian Steve Oedekerk, who teamed up with the two to bring it to Nickelodeon and pitched the demo to become an animated show. By that point, Nick was fully on board with the project, and even loved the pilot that they made afterwards. However, there were a couple of ideas of what they wanted to do before creating the series. First, they had to change the name of the boy, Johnny Quasar. Okay, sure, I get it. Sounds a bit too much like Johnny Quest anyways. How about, Jimmy Neutron? Has a better ring to it. And second, the network proposed to have a tie-in movie, to which the creators not only agreed, but also decided to make it the debut of Jimmy Neutron, since it would help to have his start be presented with better quality. And when The Boy Genius premiered at the end of 2001, it was not only a hit, but it also became part of animation history. On top of being among the first films to be nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, it was also the first ever animated movie to be fully made with publicly available software. It may not sound like much at first, but Jimmy Neutron paved the way to show what the technology could do, even with tools that anyone could get that could result in other great projects that could do the same, like Flow. And by the way, if I can mention my experience with the franchise, I'll admit that it's been a long time since I've seen any of his brain blasts, but I do remember being a fan of the franchise around the same time as I was watching SpongeBob. On top of repeatedly watching the film as a kid, even back when it was in theaters, I also saw a good amount of the series itself. So I am familiar with not just Jimmy, but also Jimmy's dad and his fascination with ducks, Cindy and her attitude, Sheen with his obsession with Ultralord, and Carl with his love for llamas, Jimmy's mom, and also...
Are you going to finish that croissant?
But now that I'll be going back to Retroville after all these years, is it smart for me to revisit this movie? Or will I end up with Yokians on my face? Let's find out. The story. How Jimmy Neutron made his start is by answering a question that almost every kid had at one point when growing up. What if they wake up one day and their parents are gone, freeing them from abiding any rules and do whatever they want? Yes, we did get a bit of an example of that case with Lord of the Flies, but that would be too horrific to turn that into a family film. So instead, the kids of Retroville go crazy around town and then decided that they didn't like it. But if they wish to see their parents again, it's up to Jimmy to lead them all to space and go to a planet named Yokis to rescue the adults from being sacrificed by a giant alien chicken.
Jumping Jupiter! The Earth's been visited by aliens!
For those not familiar with this Boy Genius, yes, the plot does sound pretty goofy, and that's because it's quite aware that it is. In a way, it's a bit like a throwback to those retro sci-fi B-movies and shows that could be corny with their space adventures and alien fights. The only catch is that there's not much to it outside of that. My biggest criticism with the feature is that the story is among its lower priorities. It's not the kind of film that's about what Neutron and the kids experience in the adventure, or what they've learned along the way. It's as straightforward as it can be, where it's about them going to another planet to save their parents. There isn't even a moral or a commentary regarding parenthood and the role that parents play in kids' lives to include that kind of substance that the viewer can have afterwards. While it plays similarly like those retro sci-fi B projects, the narrative is also as strong as those retro sci-fi B projects, and the story's simplicity will make the movie feel like it goes by faster than its around 80-minute running time.
What good is it to be a genius if you can't even go out on a school night?
Also, it's worth noting how it's easy to tell that this is a movie from the early 2000s. Maybe this is a factor that could be considered a plus or a minus, depending on who you ask, but this is one of those films where the soundtrack is dominated by pop songs. It's like if almost every scene is required to have a short montage playing either a cover of a 70s or 80s tune, or a hit from 2000 or 2001. Again, this may get mixed reactions, but this is something that really tells me how this is very much a movie of its time. Then again, that doesn't mean that there wasn't any thought that was put behind the adventure. Even if the materials with the plot is pretty basic, one thing that it does to make up for it is by making the most with the execution. Keep in mind that part of this picture's purpose is to get the audience familiar with the characters and the kind of scientific situations that they get themselves in so that they can be ready for the true experience with the series. And in that case, the movie does have some charm by making it more character-driven. It doesn't really matter why or how they go to save their parents. I mean, the kids are flying in space in amusement park vehicles with nothing to provide them oxygen. It's not even worth trying to point out the scientific inaccuracies.
What? Nothing.
But what does matter is the tone to make it feel like this is how kids would go to stop aliens and save the people that they love, providing plenty of opportunities to show off its creativity, and especially Jimmy's brain power to present how he solves problems by being smarter than the average child.
Brain blast!
And along with the theme of this being a kid's adventure, it also does well to display the comedy. It doesn't exclusively display gags that are based on Jimmy's gadgets and how his intellectual approach doesn't always go in his favor. It additionally used the humor as a tactic for the viewer to get more familiar with the personalities and to play along with the concept of what these kids would do if the adults are not around. This actually works well to make the movie be engaging to see what will be the next thing that could make you laugh. In a way, the fun of this movie is not necessarily going to space to save the parents, but rather, it's doing so with these kids specifically who can make the experience fun.
Entering ionosphere?
Oh, now I know why they all ended fair!
While it's technically its own standalone movie, it does show that it is simultaneously a bigger pilot for the series. It may leave the plot to feel a bit dry and there isn't much that you get out of the adventure itself, but when it comes to the elements that it could transfer onto the show, like the comedy and the sci-fi tone, it does give a good first impression to make the feature feel enjoyable to watch. The film's brain power wasn't used onto the story the most, but at least it knows how to present it in a fun way. The animation. I know that I started this review by going into the origins of Jimmy Neutron, But there's a lot of context that need to be clarified here because, as a computer-animated feature, this honestly looks rough.
They look like they're about to barf.
And I'm not gonna knock this movie for using public software to create the animation. It's more the fact that, 1, this is an animated movie from the end of 2001, so regardless of what they use, it looks quite primitive by today's standards, and 2, these were elements meant for an animated series. Even if the filmmakers got a bigger budget for the movie, they have to keep the overall aesthetic mostly the same as how they want to present it in the show. And with these two combining factors, there were a lot of limitations to what this animation could do. Where textures are almost non-existent, the designs were reduced to using basic shapes to build the characters, and the effects, as much as they try, can be very simplistic.
Okay, Jimmy, that's the last straw.
It was lucky to be released at a time when computer animation was the hot new medium for movies because, when looking back now, the visuals don't look as advanced as the other films during that time like Shrek and Monsters, Inc. I'd even say that the quality is closer to the first Toy Story. Thank goodness that Goddard is a robot, otherwise Jimmy would be going around convincing people that this is a dog.
Oh, Goddard, not on the porch.
However, this is not to rant against the animation. Sure, it all looks like a plate of sentient scrambled eggs, but I'm gonna be fair and judge it by how it looks by the standards at that time. And yes, it may look a little more primitive compared to what CG was capable of doing, but on its own, it's not that bad. In fact, I can actually find a lot of good things that it did that outweigh its own setbacks. One element that I do admire from the visuals is how the character animation is well done. Even with these simple designs and the tech that the animators had to work with back then, they were still able to make the cast very expressive and make their personalities come out strong largely from their movements, how they go fly their rocket ship, and fight the aliens.
Dragon whips her tail! Yeah!
But what makes the feature visually pleasant is how it has great concepts. Even with the limitations that the feature has, the team still pull through to make their vision come out strong and show a lot of great ideas with what they could do with this adventure. The backgrounds are a great example of that, where the kids get into some locations that are really fun to watch, like Yokis, which is the advanced alien civilization that is themed to chickens and eggs, and Retroland with all the different rides that are featured. Another element that makes the film fun to watch is all the gadgets that create the sci-fi component. As Jimmy Neutron is the boy genius, the film provides a lot of examples of what he can make with his big brain. Goddard already provided a bunch of tricks to prove that, but then there are some other inventions that he shows off to both help the adventure and the comedy.
I've got it down this time! Internal combustion is such old science. Bubble travel is the way of the future!
But this isn't just limited to what Jimmy can do. I also really enjoyed the tech made for the Yokians because, while their real organism is just goo with eyes, the aliens have this robotic shell to move around and use their arms. And to blast off in space, what the kids did is use a variety of ride vehicles in Retroland to convert them into fully functioning rocket ships with their own abilities, which adds a lot of creativity to the journey. And with this kind of mission, of course there's going to be some action involved, and I will give the movie that they are well executed. Even if the approach would be deemed as childish and silly, they do add some intensity to show that some of the challenges they have to face are no joke. I'm sure we can agree that this is not among the best looking computer animated films out there. Even back then, it doesn't look as advanced compared to what the other studios like Pixar and DreamWorks were doing with the technology. But for what it is, the visuals are pretty decent and still good enough to bring some strong concepts to life in order to create this amusing adventure. Like Jimmy's inventions, it could use some recalibrations to make it work better, but the animation still functions well to serve its purpose. The characters. As a movie that is also partly a pilot, one of its main goals is to fully introduce the characters to the audience, to get familiar with Jimmy and the other kids and adults that he hangs out with so that you could get easily invested when going into the series afterwards. Considering how this has more importance to the feature than the story, the effort managed to work out because the characters are among the film's strongest assets. Like I said before, part of the fun is to go into this outer space adventures with these group of kids, and they are able to show their charisma and affiliation with Neutron that can leave an impact for the viewer to remember them by. And what's more, the film also has a great voice cast. This is mainly due to the fact that they are mostly professional voice actors who already signed up for the series, such as Debbie Derryberry, Rob Paulsen, Jeff Garcia, Frank Welker, Caroline Lawrence, Candy Milo, and many more. They know how to make their respective roles stand out and have them bursting with energy so that their charm can be present. I personally give credit to the actors for providing a big part to what makes the movie enjoyable.
Well, look at this!
Now meet Ultralord live! Llamas and capybaras!
Even though the series has a large group of people in Retroville that get the spotlight, the movie focuses on the main cast and present the core elements of who they are without going fully in depth with them, mainly to save some of it for the series. Starting with the boy genius himself, Jimmy Neutron is gifted with great intellect, which allows him to create some highly advanced inventions to the point that rocket science to him is just basic science that he could easily understand.
Long-range sensors picked up these ion trails, indicating the departure route for whatever alien intelligence has abducted our parents.
However, despite being a genius, he's still just a kid. And while some of his creations are for his personal curiosities, like finding life outside of Earth, most of them are for solving problems that a kid commonly faces. And a big part of Jimmy is to find the right balance between being a genius and being a kid, since they are both completely different mindsets that don't always blend well together. Not to mention that he can have his own insecurities like his size. I mean, I don't blame him. He's got a head bigger than the rest of his body that's like a giant peanut with a Donkey Kong haircut.
I'm not exactly the tallest guy around. Shorty, squirt, small stuff, shrimp. Gets to you after a while.
As for his classmates, there's Carl, Jimmy's anxious and timid best friend, whom, despite his many concerns, is always by Jimmy's side to help him with what he's doing. I also want to add that he's one of my favorite Rob Paulsen characters. His geekiness and awkwardness is relatably hilarious in both the movie and the series.
Did they all go to Florida?
Maybe they went to get juice or something.
I don't digest pulp well. It makes me bloaty.
There's his other good buddy Sheen, who is also a geek, but in a different way than Carl, where he is hyper-fixated over anything that is Ultralord.
Now, counterpart, take this Ultramask
I will,
and
I will.
lead
Give it
the
to me.
fight
Give it to me.
for justice.
There's Cindy, Jimmy's intellectual rival who has a more feminist approach to how she is smart, who is accompanied by her friend Libby.
After class, I'll be happy to demonstrate how boy dinosaurs got their butts kicked by girl dinosaurs on a regular basis.
Excuse me.
Then there is Nick, who is like the cool guy of the school that the girls go crazy over and teaches the boys how to be more of a rebel.
Oh my, am I? Yeah, it took me a little while to copy my mom's handwriting for this late note.
As for the adults, the only ones featured in the film are Jimmy's parents, including Judy, who is the caring but also strict mother, and Hugh, who is the more dim-witted dad who is easily impressed by what Jimmy does.
Would you try calling Jimmy? He's going to miss the bus again.
Jimmy! Breakfast! Time to come down! Down, whack.
And Miss Fowl, whom in the movie mainly has a running gag of being shrunk and has to fight against a worm.
I will lead you to paradise.
And then there are the Yokians, who were mainly created for the movie, but the one leading them is their king, Goobot V, whom alongside his Martin Short assistant Ooblar, kidnaps the parents of Retroville to offer them as sacrifice to their chicken god, Poltra. And just like the rest of the cast, Patrick Stewart did an incredible job with the voice, matching their energy to play this over-the-top ruler who enjoys every moment of making his plans come to fruition. He's aware of his own evilness and absolutely loves it, even if he and the other Yokians only appear in the third act and one scene prior to it.
The search is over!
If it's not to get invested in the story, and if it's not to see some stellar animation, then what makes the movie worth it is to meet up with some entertaining characters who provide some excellent voice acting. Even if they're meant to set themselves up for the show, they do at least have the knowledge on how to do well in a feature. I wouldn't say that this movie is a stroke of genius, but I definitely enjoyed watching it as much as I did when I was young. Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius is a kids movie in the best way possible. It highlights all the fun of being a kid with this sci-fi epic adventure that is approached with a childlike mentality of what is a genius and how to fight against aliens. It's not a great movie as is, because much like Jimmy's Inventions, it's got some flaws that need some fixing, but the film does manage to work well to be entertaining. The story may be basic with little substance, but the execution makes up for it with solid comedy. The animation may seem very primitive, but it's not bad for its time, and there are some things that are impressively creative. And there may not be a whole lot to the characters, but they provide some excellent voice acting, and their personalities have a lot of energy and charm. Not only is this a great movie for kids to watch and connect with the cast, but I also recommend to check it out if you want to feel like a kid again. It can also give you a good dose of nostalgia if you remember watching the movie or the series when you were younger, or if you want to feel like you're back in the early 2000s. And if this review made you feel like a kid again, then give this a like and come subscribe to my channel. You could join me in checking out more movies that could be the next animated genius. Of course, the movie worked out where Jimmy went on to become one of Nickelodeon's icons. But despite being known to make robots, rockets, and all sorts of inventions, it should never be forgotten that one of Neutron's greatest creations was a fun movie. Hey guys, this is Animat, and I want to start things off by giving out a huge thanks to Russell Ray Young, whose amazing support on Patreon allowed him to get some amazing rewards, including this one, where he got to ask me to review Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. And like I said at the start of this review, I actually do have some nostalgia for Jimmy Neutron. Not only did I watch some of the episodes, or actually a good bunch of the episodes of the series, but on top of that, I actually do recall watching this movie several times when I was a kid. I even remember when I went to go and actually watch this in theaters. So I remember Jimmy Neutron like way back when he started out and then would go and have his prime on Nickelodeon with his series and all that kind of stuff. So I did follow a good chunk of Jimmy Neutron. Maybe not necessarily all of it. Like I didn't watch all of the trilogy of the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. Maybe I did with the first, but I don't recall watching either the second or the third. But still though, I did watch watch enough to say that I did enjoy Jimmy Neutron. However, I will say right now, no, I did not watch anything from Planet Sheen. I think at that point, I moved on from Jimmy Neutron and most of the Nickelodeon shows at the time. So at that point, I did hear about Planet Sheen, and based on what I've heard about it, I think it's best that I go and distance myself from the show. Or, I don't know, maybe there is one day that I'll go and check it out, but it's not going to be a top priority. But anyways, I will say that going back to this, it really did feel like a nostalgic blast from the past. And maybe that might have influenced a little bit of this review, I will confess. But still, though, it was just a lot of fun, and it did make me feel like a kid again when watching this movie, especially when seeing all the kids come together and that they would go on their amusement park vehicles to go in space and save their parents. So all in all, it's just a real good time. And even though I didn't give it like an amazing score, I still very much enjoyed it. Again, I had a great time with it. All right, so anyways, now with all that said and done, it is now time that we shall go and move on to the animation hat. I almost said Patreon request, but no, this was the Patreon request. And speaking of which, by the way, before I go and pick the next animated feature here, I just want to go and say that if you would like to go and be like Russell and go and support my work and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else, including reviews that are uncut, yes, they are extended editions compared to what you would go and watch on YouTube, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you would like to go and suggest an animated film you would like me to review and that I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. All right, so now with that said, let's go and pick our next movie. So let's see now. Just got to make sure I pick it, actually. Make sure. There we go. Okay, I got it. Ooh, it was a little tricky to go and grab one, but at least I managed to do so. And the next review shall be... No, wait, is this? No, oh no. Is this the one? Oh no, wait, no, this is the one. Oh God, no. Oh boy, oh my God. Oh, I dreaded this. I actually dread this moment would actually come. And yeah, I got it. So I guess I got to go and review this now. Oh, geez. Yeah. Man, after all these years, my time has come. So you know there's something you should know, so I'm gonna tell you so. Don't sweat it, forget it, enjoy the show!
Working all day, now it's time to unwind. Kick back, relax.
Hi, I'm Paul.